Warning, this radio program has been rated R for ridiculous. All listeners must be accompanied by their spirit guides.
You're listening to Haunted Voices Radio.
This is Lisa Williams, and you're listening to Haunted Voices Radio with Todd Bates.
This is paranormal researcher Gavin Goska, and you're listening to Haunted Voices Radio on the Haunted Voices Radio Network.
This is Joshua P. Warren with Speaking of Strange, and you are listening to none other than Todd Bates on Haunted Voices Radio.
This is Matthew Schultz from Para Explorer Project aboard the Haunted Queen Mary. Leave your closed mind at the door. You have entered Paranormally Entertaining Radio. Haunted Voices with Todd Bates and Phil Roll.
Symptoms of regular listening include developing a succubus complex, if male, loose bowels in high EMF environments, daytime old hag syndrome, throwing objects back at poltergeists, visitations from dead relatives collecting outstanding debts, unwanted or wanted sexual advances from unseen hands, volunteering for alien anal probing. Consult your physician before starting any paranormal program.
Welcome to Haunted Voices Radio. Haunted Voices Radio brings you education, comedy, and information from top instructors, authors, and performers in the field of the paranormal. Join Todd and Phil each week to discover tricks of the trade that will help you to develop your craft and prosper as a paranormal investigator. It has never been easier to listen and interact from the privacy of your own home. This is truly a program you won't find anywhere else. Now, here are the hosts of Haunted Voices Radio, Todd Bates and Phil Roll.
From the land beyond, from the world past hope and fear.
And a good evening, one and all. Welcome. Yes, for the love of everything holy. You're listening to Haunted Voices Radio, of course, live, right here, hauntedvoices.com. That's the place to be. If you're not in chat, get your derrieres in there. We're going to need you. You guys have to be a part of the solution here. We've got some amazing discussions here, first hour and second hour. Get over there, hauntedvoices.com. Log in through Facebook, Twitter as a guest. We don't care. Rip off your mom's account, get in that chat room. It's important. We're going to need your input. And, of course, we're coming to you live on this beautiful May the 2nd, 2017. Holy cow. May is here already.
Holy cow!
Yes. And, of course, Phil and I have made it. You're listening to episode 17 after we've come back from our alien abduction. We're back. We had some time off at the planet Draconia. Here we are. We met Tim over there. Now, we've got an amazing plan.
Oh, Tim.
Tim's amazing. If you're listening, Tim.
Blast from the past.
Yep, we love you, Tim, if you're listening, my friend. So get your butts over there and chat. Of course, tonight we're going to be talking with Reverend John Polk. You're going to love this. Medium and alien abductee, who will be talking about his two books. And during our second hour, Phil and I welcome returning guest. We love talking to this guy, Matthew Alper. God part of the brain. Why we believe in believing. Critical thinking. Now, you guys really screwed up and learned something last time he was on. You're going to do that again tonight. It's important. You got to learn these things. You've got to put your opinion in there. They're important. And, of course, we've got some other announcements here. But first, Phil and I, episode 17. Here we are, Phil. What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. It's been that many.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it.
No, our memory's getting worse. It just seems to be. I think we're getting old, Phil.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, you're definitely older. You hung out with Moses, so with me, it's a little different. But, you've been there, done that. So I do commend you for showing up. It's important.
Well, with age comes wisdom.
What's that?
And I will give you credit for having the wisdom yourself to stick with me.
Oh, that's pure. Yes. Glad you got to see me. Very nice.
See, I'm trying every way I can to,
Hey, whatever it takes. Now, don't forget here, folks, we're running a contest which could get you a $50 Visa gift card, maybe a MasterCard, whichever one's cheaper. Now, what you need to do, it's simple. Get into iTunes. If you have iTunes, you get it on Windows, whatever, Apple, your little iPhones there, your smartphones. what you do is you're going to write an honest review after you subscribe and listen to one of the programs. Now, it doesn't need to be a good review, just honest. We can accept criticism. We've been here, my goodness, well over a decade. We can accept it. We've heard it all, trust me. Now, the review needs to be in by May 29th of this year, of course. Don't get squirrely out there, people. Then, on our May 30th show, we're going to announce the winner of the $50 gift card. So get over there. Subscribe to us. Listen to an episode. Give us an honest review. It can be a 1-star. It can be 5 stars. It can be whatever. It doesn't matter. Keep it clean. Let us know. You can win $50. That's simple. And our magazine. Yeah, we have one of those coming out now. It's going to be coming out here in July, Haunted Voices magazine. Beverly's doing an amazing job at that. But we still need writers. So do you have a paranormal experience? We need your experience. And it will be featured on our Reader's Experience page. And you'll receive credit and nothing more. Now, is there a book you want to share? Well, we're also going to be having psychic readings in the magazine. Now, this is something fun. This is something fun. It's a lot of hard work, but it's fun. Now, if you have a question you would like answered by our staff psychic there, send in your question, and it will get answered and featured in the magazine. We want you to be a part of it. It's important. This is something really amazing we've got coming out here for you, and we know you're going to love it. So if you're interested, please contact our producer, Beverly, at producer@hauntedvoices.com. That's producer@hauntedvoices.com. And she's going to send you all the info you need because there's some legalities we got to go through here. Gag orders, and basically you're signing a piece of paper saying that you're going to receive no compensation whatsoever, ever. Yeah. Now, get it over there, folks. Seriously. It's fun times. It's going to be free of charge. You can download it there at the website, hauntedvoices.com. And that's going to be out, hopefully, end of June, July, something around that area. You'll love it. What they felt. I love doing that to him. And what Phil's doing, he's battling chat. And while you're in chat, say hi to Cindy. Bev's in there. We've got, of course, Maggie's joining us. Now, Cindy, if you have any questions, she's going to post them here to us because you're going to have some. The first hour, Reverend John Polk, we're going to be discussing aliens all the way to, was Yahweh, Jesus, Jesus, an alien? All these things are coming up here, folks. Second hour, it's believing and believing. The God part of the brain. Cool stuff coming up. Now, what we've got some fun facts here. Now, we're going to be discussing the brain this evening. So why not throw you some facts about the brain? Now, some of these are going to blow your mind, no pun intended. You're going to love these. These are facts. This is real information here, folks. And this one of my favorites here, Phil. I didn't know this. It's kind of creepy, morbid as hell. But Albert Einstein's brain was removed within 7 hours of his death by Princeton pathologist Thomas Stoltz Harvey. What a weird name that is. Now, Harvey, what he did, he sectioned and preserved the brain into 240 blocks. This guy's got a lot of time on his hands, man. And he removed the eyes and gave them away. How do you do that? Would you wrap it up for Christmas or something? Stocking stuffer. Now, what he did, he kept pieces.
Piece of a brain.
It's disgusting. He gave away the eyeballs. Now, he kept pieces of the brain for himself. I mean, who wouldn't? And gave other pieces to other prominent pathologists. This guy's like the gift giver here. And he was fired. Go figure. Jeez. He was fired from Princeton Hospital because he refused to return the brain. Now, other brains that have been preserved, including German mathematician Carl Friedrich Gauss and Vladimir Lenin, and of course the Native American Ishai. What? Why would you save a brain? Now, I heard about the whole Nostradamus thing where they kind of drank out of his skull, but chucking a brain, mailing it to family members, that's kind of creepy, Phil.
Yeah, that's a little weird, but I've seen Frankenstein a lot of times, and hey, you can do a lot of good things with a brain.
Oh, God.
Well, except Fritz grabbed the criminal brain instead of the normal brain, and look how the monster turned out.
Yeah, but I still like
So you got to be careful when you're playing with brains.
It's a brain thing. This is a thinker here, folks. Now, what's another one here, Phil?
The brain takes the longest of any organ to develop and goes through more changes than any other organ. Your brain changes constantly.
Yeah.
Is that why there's so many crazy people? You know, the brain goes the wrong way.
Possible. I mean, it's a brain.
And a human brain is 75% water and has the consistency of tofu or gelatin.
Oh, that's just gross.
So now I can understand why Hannibal Lecter liked the brains. Remember Hannibal, where he cut the top of the guy's head off? And
oh, yeah. Yeah, he was still alive.
Yeah,
that's fun times for the whole family. You got to rewind something like that and share it. Now, here's one I like, Phil. And this is true. All you women out there, you are correct. Now, men have a sexual pursuit area that is 2.5 times larger than in female brain. Very true. And what I love...
Oh, I believe that. Absolutely.
Now, what I like here, the human brain is the largest and most powerful sex organ. I beg to differ. We could take that on so many levels, but the kids aren't in bed
I can't remember
yet.
ever seeing a woman that I was attracted to and feeling my brain tighten up in my head. So, I don't know.
These are facts, folks. I don't know. Throw them another one, Phil. This is good stuff.
Scientists claim that the most complicated and mysterious thing in the universe is the human brain. Scientists know more about stars exploding billions of light years away than they know about the brain. So, we still don't know how our brains work.
So they can...
We're idiots.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. We're complete morons. So we can sit there and study something trillions of miles away, but we do not know how we study something trillions of thousands of miles away because we do not know how the brain operates. You know, I think we all contain superpowers. One day we can fly or perhaps become invisible. We just don't know how to do it yet.
Now, there's one. Go ahead, you read it, number 11. About in South America. This one freaks me out.
All right, let me see.
I've got a question about this one.
Well, this one here has some of them fancy words in it, so I'm going to try here and just kind of pronunciate them the best I can.
That's why I gave it to you.
Thanks. Now, in South America, scientists have discovered deliberately made skull holes. Okay, this is going to go on a completely different level here. I can feel it. That may have been made to treat painful headaches, brain disease, or let evil spirits out of the head, called trepanation. Now, the process of making those holes was incredibly painful. You freaking think you're drilling a hole in somebody's head. Now, the high number of trepanatized skulls suggest that this brain surgery was commonplace. Listen, brain surgery, these people are alive and they're getting whole. For the love of the Messiah, somebody send these people some ibuprofen. It's that simple. You don't go drilling holes in people's head. You got penicillin and all this stuff. Aspirin, you can scrape it off a rock or something, can't you?
Well, that's what I was thinking when I read this. These are primitive people. They didn't have power drills. They probably didn't even have hand drills.
Yeah, they probably used a chisel.
So how did they make a hole in somebody's skull? Take a pointy rock and hammer it through?
Yeah, they beat the hell out of it.
That's got to hurt, you know.
They beat the hell out of these poor people. Why not go scrape some fungus off a rock? Here, swallow this. The headache will go away. If they're smart enough to sit there and double tap someone's brain to relieve pressure from a common headache, throw them some moss. Let them eat it. See if that does it. Give them one of those cocaine leaves. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I mean. You know, I got a headache, so they hammer a rock through your head or something. Well, yeah. And then you just calm right down, close your eyes, and the headache's gone.
Yeah, what does.
Yeah, you close your eyes forever.
Yeah.
So they say, hey, this works.
We're going to distract the pain.
This guy ain't yelling about a headache anymore.
Yeah, of course, because he's got 5 holes in his head.
He's starting to turn black. And,
But people really did this. This is fact. This is fact, people. This really happened. I wish we just had actual footage of some of this. It'd be amazing. Go ahead, let them know about the Middle Ages.
During the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church banned human dissection and the study of human anatomy. Consequently, study on the brain slowed considerably. However, Roman barbers offered primitive brain surgery to remove the stone of madness.
Oh,
that's what I want. I want a barber cutting into my head.
Yeah. This stuff's getting kind of creepy. Now, of course, a lot of you know about the JFK assassination. This is, now, there's a lot of rumors about Kennedy's brain, or parts of it, let's face it. It kind of split in a few pieces here. Now, this one here, President John F. Kennedy's sister, Rosemary, was given a lobotomy for her mild retardation. Now, a famous actress named Frances Farmer was given a lobotomy to make her easier to get along with, even though she may not have been mentally insane. So they're just sitting there doing a frontal lobotomy on these people, which is kind of going in there and scrambling the brain like eggs to make them kind of a little less sane, just because they're a little cranky. Now, Howard Dully discovered late in life that he has been lobotomized. He had been lobotomized in 1960 at the age of 12 by Walter Friedman. He's snitching on him. Simply because it appears his stepmother didn't like him. But she convinced Friedman something was wrong with the boy. So let's scramble the front of his head, because he's a little toasty. He's being a kid. He's a little ornery. These lobotomies, now, I mean, it's taboo now. If they do still do them, you really don't hear about them. But they used to do those a lot back in the day, Phil.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty common to calm down, people who were rowdy. And I mean, I'm talking about a movie here, but Jack Nicholson, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Mm-hmm.
He got rowdy and lost his temper and everything, and they gave him a lobotomy, and he walked around like something out of Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And they used to actually do that to people.
And they think that's normal. Now they just throw in Prozac and all these other cosmetic drugs. Here, swallow this. That's creepy. It's creepy. I don't know. Throw him another one.
Well, another one here. The brain does not have any pain receptors and consequently cannot feel pain, which explains how that guy in Hannibal could be alive with the top of his head cut off, and Hannibal's digging into his brain for dinner, and the guy ain't screaming in pain. Your brain can't feel any pain.
Can't feel any pain. I think it's the only organ that can't.
And that's kind of weird, because the brain is what all the nerves in your body send messages to make you feel pain everywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a give and take. I don't know. To me, that seems like an oxymoron. Something that sends pain can't feel it. Makes no sense. But, again, it's fact. Therefore, it is written. Interesting things here. Now, everyone's brain... I love this. I love this. Everyone's brain starts out as female. Yeah. The brain of males begins to become masculinized around 8 weeks after conception by the male hormone testosterone. So, and that does, you've got to think, people, this makes sense. Now, when you're in the womb, you're in a female womb. Guys, we don't have these things, thank God. But testosterone gets into the mix, and I think that's what makes the pregnant woman a little cranky, a little, moody. That's probably what makes her get the morning sickness and throw up, too. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah. You're talking about, a woman...
Testosterone.
Right.
Mixed in there after.
Then it's funny, the one right after it is, a woman's brain shrinks during pregnancy and takes up to 6 months to regain its full size. Is that why during pregnancy women get so weird?
I'm afraid to comment on that. That could get you and I in a lot of trouble, and we could not be conscious here.
Well, the only thing I'm thinking of is I remember years ago, some friends of ours, she got pregnant. When she went into labor, she was screaming at her husband, "You son of a, you did this to me. You're never going to touch me again." But then what will a woman do? A year later, or a year and a half later, they want another baby.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to get in trouble here.
No, not at all.
That brain shrinks, and
it may not come back.
Don't have the capacity. They think weird or something, you know.
It may not come back. Well, listen, if you have some crazy news that you find, of course, have any guests you'd like to hear on the show, we'd love to know. Email Beverly. She'd love to hear from you. Of course, producer at hauntedvoices.com. And you guys have the iHeartRadio app on your smartphone. You can listen to us right there. We're right there on the After Hours AM channel. And we'll bring you the best in paranormal talk radio there. All kinds of great shows on that channel, iHeartRadio app. And get into iTunes, subscribe to our show there as well. Don't forget to include an honest review of our program. It may make you a winner. Now, we come back, we're going to be discussing ghosts, aliens, and all things paranormal here. Reverend John Polk coming up next. You're listening to Haunted Voices Radio right here, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. We'll be right back.
WGOG DB Clearwater. Haunted, a psychic story by author and radio host Ariel Grace. This is not your average book of hauntings. Haunted, a psychic story is written from a psychic perspective and contains true stories and some handy tips. Written in 3 parts, Haunted, a psychic story contains chilling adventures, advice from the archangels, and helpful tips used by Ariel Grace to clear haunted homes around the globe. Haunted, a psychic story is available on Amazon, or you can download straight to your Kindle. Haunted, a psychic story by Ariel Grace. Get your copy today.
When a child is abducted, every second counts. That's why this station uses the Internet Radio Amber Alert System, helping to keep your children safe. A free service of the Internet broadcasting community and this station.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Having trouble finding Connor's middle school? Would you like directions?
No, why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with him over homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No, I need help. He's very smart, but his mind wanders. He's disorganized.
I think I understand.
Oh, good.
Finding best potatoes for French fries.
No!
Russet, fingerling, Yukon Gold.
Why don't you understand me?
Sorry, I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
Brought to you by understood.org and the Ad Council.
Twenty-three minutes past the hour. Haunted Voices Radio Live, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Look, folks, get to hauntedvoices.com. Don't just sit there on the couch. Be a part of the show. Be a part of the solution here. Get into chat. Log in through Facebook, Twitter, as a guest. We don't care. Just get your derrieres in there. Now, if you did miss the first part, all of it's going to be archived. No worries. You can find all the latest episodes right there at hauntedvoices.com. Just look on the past shows button or find us on the iHeartRadio app on the After Hours AM channel or subscribe to us on iTunes. Now, we'd love to have you in chat. You're going to love our first guest here. Now, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be speaking with Reverend John Polk. Now, he holds a bachelor's in broadcasting and other another BA in metaphysics from the University of Sedona. Now, the university granted him, I love this, the title of International Metaphysical Minister after his studies were complete. Now, he's a Reiki master and an instructor in Usai Reiki. He is also the founder of Wolf Spirit Ministries, LLC. Now, Reverend Polk is a medium, abductee, and author of Yahweh, the Biblical God, is an Alien, and the Blue Beings. Welcome, Reverend John.
Hey, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
Oh, it's great to have you. My goodness. So many things here to talk about. It's rough to get to start. Now, you've got a degree in broadcasting. The first thing I have to ask you is, how did you switch gears from that into the metaphysical world, the paranormal realm? Why the change, John?
Good question. When I was a kid, I knew that I always wanted to be a broadcaster. And then I got a job right out of college working at an audio-video production company. And then we worked in conjunction with the TV and the radio stations in this small market up in Ohio. And I was making $4.25 an hour, doing exactly what I wanted to do. I was on TV, I was on the radio, I was singing, the owner of the production company. We wrote jingles for bands. So we were singing and doing videography, recording bands, traveling around that part of the country, doing promotional videos, et cetera, working in conjunction with the TV and radio stations. And I was doing exactly what I wanted to do, but I could not have been more poor. And so I decided to move back down to Florida, and I got into sales. But I've always been into the metaphysical, UFO, ET, paranormal since I was 5 years old, because my mom was totally into it.
Wow. And you're right. It's not exactly a very lucrative field. But it's fun. And the beauty of it is all the knowledge you gain from it. Now, getting into this field, the strange and bizarre, the unexplained, personally, I love it because there's no absolutes. It's all, a lot of it's opinion-based, very, very, very little fact. And a lot of it comes down to belief, which the irony of that is this first hour we're talking about belief, second hour we're talking about disbelief and why we have the God part of the brain. So you definitely want to stay tuned for Matthew Alper, second hour. But, John, with all of this, there's so many things in this field. First of all, what made you realize that you had the gift of being a medium? Did it just happen one day? Was there an accident to spark it? What started it?
My first abduction that I can actually recall, I know I was abducted prior to the age of 15, but that's the first one that I can honestly remember. And after that abduction, my parents were rich. We lived in $1 million condo on the ocean in Daytona Beach during spring break and MTV and Days of Thunder with Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise. It was no more surreal existence as a teenager than you could possibly imagine. I was heavily into drugs, and I absolutely loved to write poetry about the supernatural, navigating the astral plane. And but after that abduction is when I began to write this award-winning poetry. And, I look back on it and read some of it, going back, almost 30 some odd years. And a lot of it is more brilliant than the stuff that I can actually come up with today.
And how old were you when you got abducted?
15.
And do you have any memory of that, or do you have to be regressed like a lot of other abductees? Can you share the experience?
I absolutely can. So, once again, $1 million condo on the ocean, shaped like a diamond. And the tip of the diamond, the apex of the pyramid, if you will, faced the Atlantic. So I had sliding glass doors all the way down on both sides and figured the apex was pointing straight at the ocean. It was very common for me to look out of my sliding glass door and see the moon undulating on the rolling tide as the waves gently crashed upon the Atlantic shore. But this one particular night, I thought it was the moon. Upon further review, I get a better look at it, and this is not the moon. It's too low. But, so I'm trying to science this whole thing. Science first when you think you see something. Well, it's not the moon, it's too low, and it's far too close to my house. It's just obvious that this was no moon, it was no meteorite, it was no flare, it was no helicopter, it was, no modern day aircraft that we can explain. And the next thing I know, I black out, and then I come to, and then I see 3 grays on the balcony. And they're like little kids, as if I'm a tiger in the zoo, pushing their heads up against the glass. And then the next thing I know, they traverse their diminutive little bodies, 3.5 foot tall. And next thing I know, they're on the inside of the glass, and they come up to my bed, and there was 3 of them. One in the middle was a little taller than the others. And next thing I know, I make eye contact with the one in the middle, and then I black out, and I wake up the next morning, and I remember I had to go to school, and my genitals were hurting, my butt was hurting.
Oh, boy.
Something happened to me, but to be honest, I didn't know. I didn't understand what happened to me, and a day or 2 later, the pain subsided, and I really, to be honest with you, I wrote it off as a dream. I never told my parents. My mom was a complete and total alien freak. Didn't tell her either. I didn't tell anybody. I sat on it. Up until right around 2009, I had a near-death experience. I almost died at my grandfather's funeral. And I remember I go up to the wake. It's a wake. I go up to the casket. I touch my grandfather on his hand. I start crying, and I start to choke on my own tears. I could not breathe at all. And I start to white out, not black out, which is indicative of the beginning stages of brain damage from oxygen deprivation to the brain. I'm starting to really freak out. My brother comes up to me, and he's trying to see if I'm okay. And, all I can remember him saying is 911, 911. And then the next thing I know, I snap out of it. My air passage, that whole anatomy frees up, and I can breathe again. And right after that, I started having incredible UFO encounters. I've always been able to see ghosts since I was a kid, but that ramped up exponentially after that near-death experience.
Okay, John, it's Phil here.
Hey, Phil.
Hi. I'm just wondering, do you think, because we've talked to other people who were abducted and things like, are there certain people that they have picked, like since birth, that they use as test subjects? Or do they just randomly decide to take somebody?
I think it's both, but this is what I've always believed, is that I chose to be abducted with what you can call the contract before you're born. We do have free will, but there's certain things you cannot change. You cannot change your parents. If you have a child, you can't change that. You cannot change your partner that you had the child with. You cannot change your siblings. You cannot change their age. You can't change certain things in life. And I believe that this was something that I agreed to do per my contract, per this incarnation in this physical container in the 3D earth plane. So I believe it was their decision and my decision going back to before 1969, right after we landed on the moon, which is when I was born.
Okay, now this is a decision you make, before birth?
Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to entertain the concept and the idea that we have a contract with the divine council of angels of certain experiences that we have to go through to grow closer to the universal God consciousness through reincarnation, and I believe that I chose to do this. There's a lot of sacrifice involved, but it is incredibly rewarding also at the same time. So, but I do believe both. I believe that they had me hand-selected for a number of reasons. I've had people ask me, and these are good journalistic questions, I've had people ask me, well, what makes you think you're so special? And I'm like, well, we're all special. But let me rephrase what you said. Why did they choose me? Well, let's start off with the fact I've been able to see ghosts since I was a child. Let's start right there. Okay. And then my mother turned me on to the whole concept of ghosts and aliens when I was 5 years old. So I was even understanding the whole concept of living in concentric lifetimes simultaneously in what you could call the quantum hologram matrix, or living in a multidimensional existence.
So you're in tune and they know it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They want to know why and how. Perhaps you're on the same wavelength they are.
Yeah, and it's funny because my girlfriend, I can read her thoughts telepathically. I can't do that with everybody.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, John?
It depends. There's a lot of variables involved in this very dynamic calculus equation. But yeah, like for example, the other day, remember Morrison's, the old cafeteria style buffet? She thought of that, and I said it. I mean, how random is that? I mean, things like that happen between her and I, and really more me and people close to me. I can read them pretty good. So these are other reasons why I believe that they wanted to take me.
So you think the abduction, do you think that sparked that off as well? Maybe intensified it?
Absolutely.
Kind of using you. Maybe they brought you up there and did some things to you, to where you came back and you had these abilities. Maybe they're using it as a test.
I would agree completely. So after that, I started to write my first published book, which I published as a teenager before I even graduated from high school, and it's entitled Beyond Oblivion Through the Crevices in Between. And it's a book of poetry and prose, mostly poetry, and most of it, not all of it, but most of it deals with navigating the astral plane, astral projection, the spirit world, metaphysics, etc.
And something interesting here, definitely. Tell us about your human-alien hybrid daughter. This is amazing, and yours is the second case that I've heard of, and I'm very, very interested in this. Tell us about that.
Okay, so the trippy thing about abduction is, for the most part, you don't remember being removed from your bed or from your home or from your physical location. Next thing you know, you're sleeping, and then the next thing you know, you're on a ship. So I'm on a ship, and I'm kind of like, wait. I'm just getting my faculties about me, and I'm questioning what's happening, and then all of a sudden the fog seems to clear, and I look down, and I see a gray on either side of me holding my hands. And your first reaction is to pull your hand back when someone or something is holding your hand, and you didn't plan on it happening. However, I felt curiously calm. It felt very familiar to me. It was almost like I knew them, like they were family to me, and they probably had abducted me before. And we're walking down this hallway, almost completely metallic. And I remember I'm in my underwear. So what does that mean? That means that they took me from my bed. If I come to and I'm in my clothes, then I wasn't in bed yet. Okay. But this particular time, I'm in my underwear. I'm walking down the hallway. I'm cold. Outer space is cold. Right when I started to shiver, all of a sudden something came over me, and I was comfortable. I wasn't cold anymore. And walking down this very nondescript hallway, no windows, no doors, just a hallway that was completely lit but could not see any light source. And then there's a perpendicular hallway that intersects maybe, 20, 30 feet in front of where we were walking. And I see come around the corner look pretty much just like a normal human being, a nurse wearing very much a nurse's kind of outfit, if you will, and she's carrying a baby, an infant. The infant couldn't have been more than, it's hard to tell, 6 months old, something like that. And the baby looked perfectly human outside of the fact that the eyes and the eye orbits were abnormally large.
Okay.
And the baby looks at me, and I look at the baby, and I immediately knew that this was my child.
Wow.
And then about 7 years later, the exact same thing unfolds again. So I'm in my underwear, I'm cold again. All of a sudden, I'm not cold anymore. I'm walking down the same hallway, perhaps with the same grays, perhaps with even the same nurse. It was kind of fuzzy. I cannot remember for the life of me what her face looked like. But apparently she had hair, and I can remember the white thing that they put in their hair, whatever the nurses do. But now, instead of carrying an infant, she's walking with like a 7 or 8 year old girl. And it was pretty clear to me that was the same child, 7 or 8 years removed. And same identical case scenario. Make eye contact, no spoken words whatsoever. The child looks at me. I look at the child. We both knew that we were blood related. And then the next thing I know, just like the last time, poof, I wake up in bed, and I woke up crying.
So you have a beautiful child out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And abducted. The alien, which is a nurse, somehow you guys have intercourse.
To be honest with you,
holy
I don't
beer
know.
goggles. That is That is phenomenal. I mean, you're up there, and trust me, I've heard of another case of this as well with Kim Carlsberg. Same kind of situation. Really? Yeah. Yes, you're right, John. You're not alone. Trust me. Kim, she was actually abducted, of course, female, of course, and she was impregnated. So she has a hybrid daughter as well, and that's where I'm glad to see these come out, because I think there's far more than just a handful of cases. There's a lot of them out there. I just don't think people are coming, forth with them. But, and that's where it's interesting. A hybrid child, it's almost the perfect human being, right? I mean, it's her complexion's probably gorgeous. Blue eyes, perhaps blonde hair, just a gorgeous child, right?
Exactly.
Almost perfect. And it's like they... it's almost as if they're gifting us with these kinds of things, with your ability, with the child. They're trying to make the perfect race.
But now the only thing, Todd, is like with Kim Carlsberg and everything, the alien child is with them. So are they doing this to try to create another race? Is their purpose to, like infiltrate this world and other worlds?
That's where it's interesting.
This mixture, or why are they doing it?
What do you think, John?
A whole host of reasons, including the ones that you just pointed out. But here's another reason, is that some of these ETs are so evolved that they don't even have genders anymore.
Wow.
They're created in labs. They're basically asexual beings, some of which are sentient, some of which are manufactured EBEs, extraterrestrial biological entities that don't even have an amethyst or a soul. But what they're trying to do in certain cases, seed other worlds, but also to breed back in our genetics into their genome so that they can experience love again.
Okay.
So they can experience sex again. Imagine you don't have a male appendage and you don't have an orifice either. You have nothing down there in the way of genitalia. And, to reproduce, you go to a lab and they pull some DNA from this one, they pull some DNA from that one, put it together, and then they create another life.
That makes a lot of sense. It really does. I mean, because for years we thought, okay, why would they come here? Well, maybe they're emotionless creatures and they're trying to harvest our emotions so they can
I was going to
feel.
say, that's kind of sad. That
it is.
You try to evolve and get smarter to make things better, and you evolve to the point where you lose things. And then you've got to try to go back to something more primitive to try to get back what you've evolved past and lost.
That'd be a great reason for them to come, though. I mean, if you think about it, harvesting emotions, some they come, maybe they harvest resources, but I like that theory, John. They're harvesting emotions they can't feel. Like you said, they're produced, mass-produced perhaps, and they have no feeling, and they're trying to create a child or a race that has the feeling so they can have that with their DNA. That's amazing. I like that. I've never heard that kind of theory.
Well, and also, they enjoy love, and even more, they enjoy the physicality of copulation, which was foreign to them for perhaps maybe 1 million or more years. It's hard to tell. But, yeah, they enjoy having sex, which is never worked out.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that closeness and everything.
Wow.
We won't have a kid, so we'll just call the lab up and have them create one. I mean, that's a little bit of a loss there.
Well, it's kind of like what you're going through now, Phil, and what I went through in the 24 years of marriage. But that's you've got to put two and two together like that. Everything's fine, though. Everything's peaches and roses now, thank the Lord. But that's the thing, and that's a great reason for them to definitely come down here and harvest these emotions. An amazing topic. And what I want you guys to do is hold tight here. We got to skip off here for a quick second. Got a few brief announcements here for you. When we come back, we're going to be talking about John's book, Yahweh, the Biblical God, is an Alien. You're going to love this. Stay tuned. Haunted Voices Radio live right here, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Join us in chat, hauntedvoices.com. We'll be right back.
WGOG DB Clearwater.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Live Tuesday nights, 8, 7 Central. You are going to love this guest. Those of you that have never heard about Roswell, you won't be able to say that tomorrow. After a 4-year disappearance due to alien abduction, Todd Bates and Phil Roll return to host Haunted Voices Radio.
We don't have to think as much as we used to.
No, we can't. I mean, we think too hard, we wet ourselves. So we have to be careful at our age. We already get up and go to the bathroom now 3-4 times a night, Phil. I mean, it's been years. The Paracomedy Duo bring you jaw-dropping discussion on topics such as aliens, ghosts and hauntings, conspiracies, and the just plain bizarre. You see cats and little bunnies on there, but this was a picture of a demon. Anyway, listen live Tuesday nights, 8, 7 Central at hauntedvoices.com. The return of Haunted Voices Radio. This is going to be phenomenal. Oh, God. Here they go again.
I spend a lot of time in the backyard, and in 2009 it was me, your fire pit, that accidentally started a wildfire when one of my embers landed on dry brush.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. You know, I help people solve difficult problems every day, but one problem has me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. Luckily, the Feeding America network of local food banks collects surplus food, giving hope to hungry children and their families. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Of course he believes in reincarnation. Just look at his radio career. Here's Todd Bates with Phil Roll on Haunted Voices Radio.
.47 minutes past the hour. Haunted Voices Radio Live, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Get into chat, folks. You're going to love this. Get your final questions in there.
Damn, it's only 46 past by my clock. I got to do something.
Yeah, you've got to change your clock, Phil. That's your biological clock.
That's me, always a minute late.
You're done. All over. You're a minute man. Now, post your questions in chat. Log in through Facebook, Twitter as a guest if you got a question here. A lot of you guys are blown away in there. It's exactly where we want you to be. Put them in all capital letters. Real simple. And, of course, we're speaking with Reverend John Polk here. We've got some amazing information from him so far. And I tell you what, it's jogging the old noggin. That's what you want in this world. That's why we run the show, to get you thinking. Put those thinking caps on. You guys form your own opinions. Be a part of the solution here, not the problem. Now, what we're going to be discussing here is his book, Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien. This is an amazing topic in itself. We're definitely going to rebook this man for a second interview. This is phenomenal information. Welcome back to the show, John. And we were talking, of course, before about the abduction, your mediumship skills, amazing abilities. Your daughter's a beautiful hybrid. Great stuff. Now we're going to kind of shift gears and discuss Yahweh, or Jesus, basically. The biblical God is an alien. Tell us about this book and why. My goodness, this is just jaw-dropping here.
Well, I wanted it to be steeped and charged with controversy.
You did it.
Absolutely. I wanted to shake everybody south of the Mason-Dixon line. I really wanted it to be controversial. I wanted people to argue with me about it, and trust you me, that has happened. But believe it or not, most people that I do talk to, and I'm usually mostly on ET paranormal, spiritual radio shows in the first place, but most people agree with this concept that God in the Bible is not necessarily God. Mm-hmm. He's an extraterrestrial that seeded this planet. And let's go back to the scripture. The scripture just absolutely substantiates my argument. Genesis 6, the sons of the gods descended to earth and mated with the daughters of men. The sons of the gods are the fallen angels. The fallen angels were extraterrestrials that descended upon Mount Hermon. And what's interesting is that Mount Hermon is on the 33rd parallel. Guess what's on the opposite side of the earth on the same 33rd parallel?
And that would be?
Roswell. So there's absolutely no accident. So they descend to earth. They find earthly women beautiful and want to mate with them. And they created offspring called the Nephilim, which were basically demigods. They were half extraterrestrial and half humans.
Now, these were the giants. Yeah. They were huge, massive creatures, right?
Yeah, they were. You know, it's debatable. Nobody exactly knows, but anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 plus feet tall. You know, for example, Goliath was supposedly a Nephilim. There's a bunch of them throughout history that we can point to.
No, people, you're not going to find them on Facebook. Don't worry, they're not next to the kitties and puppies there. Just...
And then now some of this, just so I can get this straight real quick, because I'll tell you, I spent about 3 hours reading a lot of this stuff today, and it was nowhere near long enough. It just made me dizzy. But Yahweh was an alien that is impersonating God, pretending to be God.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, why?
Wow.
Why? Think about it.
Uh-huh.
Who do we pray to in church every Sunday? We pray to God.
Mm-hmm.
But in effect, we're praying to Old Testament Yahweh that was an extraterrestrial. So I have my own show, and I had Michael J.S. Carter on my show, who's a brilliant interview if you ever get a chance to interview him. He doesn't do a whole lot anymore, but anyway, I know him. I know him enough to get him on the show. And then I invited 2 other ordained ministers on the show. And the other 2 ordained ministers were talking about how in the Old Testament that Yahweh explains how he prefers the blood drained out of the animals before they cook them and eat them.
Wow.
So now Old Testament Yahweh kills animals and cooks them and eats them? I don't think so.
Eek. And you know, honestly, I can see this, because let's face some facts here, and I'm sure everybody can agree. I'm a recovering Catholic myself, okay? I mean, I had to go through 4 people to get to the man upstairs. Right. But with this, everyone has this stereotypical image of God as being the gray beard, the long white hair, the white robe, as a human figure. And it can't be. Because there's so many different races, I believe anyway, that I feel that, of course he's alien. He's not human. I think it's very possible he could be some other extraterrestrial. The same thing with Jesus, Yahweh. I like this theory. Another stereotypical image. Of course, he dies on the cross, and you're saying he's impersonating him. Impersonating a man, per se, and then to get everybody to draw in and lure and worship and so forth. How are people taking this book? I'm curious. How are the reviews? Are they upset with you about it? Are they understanding it? Does it make sense to them?
All of the above. And that's exactly what I wanted. I did not want every human on this planet to agree with what I had to say.
No, that's boring.
It is boring. And you know what? I'm not completely correct about everything I say in the book, but I believe, based on my research and then my downloads, that I'm pretty close. But in the end, if this, if that, if we can all agree that the biblical God is not in fact God, that it was an extraterrestrial, that is the basic tenet, the basic message that I'm trying to convey. And so I go to a lot of UFO conferences. I was at the UFO Congress in February of this year in Arizona, and I was selling my book. And I was selling that book and the Blue Beings Visitation at the UFO Conference, which is another 8-hour show in itself. But I had most of the people in there completely and totally agreed with me. Now let's do a cross-section demographic of who bought the Yahweh book versus who bought the Blue Beings book.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So what I thought that I would sell more of the Blue Beings book, and because I was at a UFO conference. I thought that, UFO conference, Blue Beings, and I did sell quite a few, but I sold mostly the Yahweh book to older men over 60 years old.
That makes sense. And it's catchy. It's catchy. You got to admit that title is catchy. It grabs you, and it makes you go, "What?"
Yeah, and it did. And then it's funny. I had an ordained minister, ministry for over 40 years, and he came up and talked to me, and he was trying to play neutral at first, which was fine. He was really kind of playing me to see what I would say, and he was really good at arguing with me about it also. But in the end, I stumped him real hard because I started pulling the scriptures out. It got to the point where I said, "So what? Are all homosexuals going to burn in hell for all eternity?" You cannot pick out parts of that book that make you feel good about yourself. You have to embrace every word of it. You cannot pick what soothes your ego the most. And then I didn't say that in that many words, but I challenged him to come on my show and let's have a friendly debate about it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make it a call-in show. You get 5 or more people on your side to call in. I'll get 5 or more people on my side to call in. We won't have a shouting match. You'll have your turn. I'll have my turn. We'll break it into 3 to 5 minute increments per question. You come up with 10 questions. I come up with 10 questions. I've never had one ordained minister try to challenge me on this. Once I start throwing scriptures in their face, they run.
Well played.
They're afraid.
But you know what? I think you were talking about men 60 and over and everything. These are people who all their lives have been brought up to believe in this God, this spirit, and now you come along and say that God was actually an alien. That's going to be hard for anybody to accept.
I agree.
There is no actual spiritual God, because unless I read it wrong, you said that Yahweh was a fake, actually. He was pretending to be God, or said he was God, when he really wasn't. So there is no actual spiritual God. It is Yahweh. He's the whole thing that created everything.
Well, what I do believe is that there is God. He's just not represented in the Old Testament of the Bible more specifically. There's what I like to call the universal God consciousness. So when you study metaphysics, more specifically out of the University of Sedona, which I did, metaphysics is now being regarded as a religion because of the whole concept of the universal God consciousness. And so that's what we believe. So the totality and the infinity of the omniverse, because there is more than one universe, is in effect God. God is all is God. But these alien creator gods that descend to not just this little blue dot in the Milky Way galaxy in our small solar system, but this Yahweh human creation story, not even experiment, but program, has been going on throughout the cosmos for billions of years. And why? Because they want to absorb our prayer energy. There's so much energy in the power of prayer. If you fly over a church on a Tuesday morning and there's nobody in it, you're not going to see any energy come out of it. But there's such as an instrument called an electroscope. You fly over Sunday at 11 a.m. in the morning when they're right in the middle of Mass singing to the Lord. The electroscope is going to peak out almost off the charts because it's measuring prayer energy. And
that makes sense to me.
If we can measure prayer energy with an electronic device, it's called an electroscope because our thoughts actually carry a current of electricity in a non-physical capacity that is measurable. So these ETs have learned how to harness this energy and extrapolate it and use it to expand their own omnipotent soul.
So if somebody is sick and everybody prays for that person and they start getting better, people call it a miracle or whatever. So are you saying that it's not God that did that? It was the power of the people praying, and it was their energy that healed that person or helped?
That's a brilliant question. So what I believe is, let's say we're praying to the wrong God or a false God, in effect an extraterrestrial. But let's say that we are doing that and we don't know that we're doing it. If we don't realize it, then everything boils down to intention. What is your intention? Most Christians conveniently ignore the Old Testament and just go with the New Testament. And I understand that because it's all about Jesus Christ ushering in the whole movement of love. And that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, that's what most churches go with more, the New Testament. Yeah.
And that's amazing. And speaking with you, John, my goodness, what an amazing interview. I wish we had more time here. What I want you to do, we've got about 60 seconds here. Get out your information, your website, your books, where they can contact you. The mic's yours, 60 seconds. Have at it.
JohnPolkMedia.com, JohnPolk Media.com. My 2 books, Yahweh, the Biblical God as an Alien, and The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference. Everything can be found JohnPolkMedia.com, at Reverend Polk on Twitter, and Marcus Polk on Facebook. jpolk2 at cfl.rr.com is my email. Thank you, gentlemen. Phil and Todd, brilliant interview, great questions.
Oh, you're amazing. We're definitely going to have you back. Very, very well done. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, this went way too fast. I got 100 more questions.
Thank you for your time, John. You have an amazing week. We'll be talking with you soon.
All right, thanks, gentlemen.
You bet. My goodness. Reverend John Polk right there, folks. Absolutely amazing time with him. Learned a lot here. Now, you're going to hear your news here real quick. Don't worry. When we come back, you're going to love this. Returning guest Matthew Alper is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking more about the God part of the brain. Now, we're literally going to switch gears here and talk about why we do believe the God part. Why not? Matt Alper next. HauntedVoices.com is a place to be. Longer to chat, of course. You're listening to Haunted Voices Radio Live, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Here's your latest news.
WGOG DB Clearwater.
Fox News Radio, I'm Kathleen Maloney. Official word from the White House that President Trump will sign the over $1 trillion spending bill that funds the government through September.
President Trump today dismissed complaints that he caved to Democrats on the spending bill, arguing he got $21 billion in new military spending and more.
We brought lawmakers together from both sides of the aisle to deliver a budget that funds the rebuilding of the United States military, makes historic investments in border security, and provides health care for our minors and school choice for our disadvantaged children.
Missing from the deal was money to build the president's vaunted border wall.
Fox's John Roberts at the White House. Former acting Attorney General Sally Yates is expected to testify that she warned the chief White House counsel about former National Security Director Michael Flynn's Russian contacts in January. Yates will testify next week before a congressional committee. A former South Carolina police officer enters a plea in the fatal shooting of an unarmed black man during a traffic stop 2 years ago.
I was looking at him standing there taking this plea, pleading guilty, and kind of feeling some type of way for his family. But then I said, I will never be able to see my brother again.
Anthony Scott, former officer Michael Slager, pleaded guilty to violating Walter Scott's civil rights. A suburban Dallas police department has fired the officer accused of fatally shooting a teen who was leaving a house party. Police say 15-year-old Jordan Edwards was killed when Officer Roy Oliver fired into a moving vehicle. Hillary Clinton says she takes some of the responsibility for her presidential loss, but also blames Russian interference and questionable decisions by the FBI concerning the investigation into her private email server. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced. Despite a tweet from the president, the Senate filibuster doesn't appear to be endangered.
Explaining concessions won by Democrats in a major spending bill, President Trump noted a 60-vote threshold in the Senate, adding in a tweet, either elect more Republican senators or change the rules to allow for a simple majority. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says a rule change won't happen.
It would fundamentally change the way the Senate has worked for a very long time. We're not going to do that.
60 senators have written McConnell and Democratic leader Chuck Schumer opposing any elimination of the filibuster on legislation.
The idea of the nuclear option for legislative stuff is pretty much dead.
On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Republican leaders are trying to muster up support for the GOP health care bill so it can be brought up for a vote, but some Republicans are holding out over how the bill deals with pre-existing conditions. Auto dealerships may be offering some good sales after a rough month.
Ford sales for the month of April fell over 7%. GM down almost 6%. Fiat Chrysler sales down almost 7%, all in part because of shrinking demand for cars, despite in some cases across the brands of booming SUV sales. Toyota sales down 2%, Nissan down 1.5%, though industry analysts expect a healthy annual sales rate of over 17 million vehicles sold, thanks also in part to an average price paid per vehicle after years of increases that's starting to slide. In Chicago, Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Federal officials are rolling out a ballistics lab on wheels. The fully equipped van will be able to test fire weapons and rapidly analyze bullets and shell casings recovered at a crime scene. First stop, Baltimore. I'm Kathleen Maloney, Fox News Radio.
The metaphysical. What is it? Are there universal influences assisting us in our daily lives?
Stop counting. Stop counting the bad stuff and stop counting the good stuff, because if you're trying to weigh it out, that's being conditional, and we'll be talking more about conditional love.
Of course. Join your host, Ariel Grace, live Sunday nights, 8, 7 Central, on A Gang of Girls Radio.
People mistake this for setting up boundaries and stuff like that, but it's that scale of, well, if he loves me, he's going to
find answers to relationship issues, your past and future, and some helpful tips on ways you can clear those nasty goo and cooties which interfere with your daily life.
We set aside all of our kind of maybe goo and cooties.
If you're confused and need insight,
express our love for each other,
then look no further than A Gang of Girls radio show with host Ariel Grace. Live Sunday nights, 8, 7 Central at agangofgirls.com.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Top of the hour. Of course, you're listening to Haunted Voices Radio, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Now, if you missed the first part of the show, don't worry. We've got you covered. Everything's archived. You can listen to all the past shows right there at hauntedvoices.com. Just click on the past shows button. Everything's there. You can download it for free, of course. Be sure and subscribe to us on iTunes, free of charge as well. And post an honest review in there. Listen to the program. You could win a $50 gift card. That drawing, again, is May 30th. It ends May 29th. And you can catch all the past shows right there on iHeart Radio app, free of charge. We're on the After Hours AM channel over there on iHeart. Love it over there. All kinds of great paranormal programming. We're in the mix. Yeah, we screwed up and made it there. Now,
sometimes we do things right.
Yeah, it happens.
It's rare, but it happens.
It happens. So what we want you to do right now, those of you just tuning in, don't just sit there on your duffs. Join us in chat. Be a part of the solution here. You're going to love this next guest. Returning guest, Matthew Alper, is going to be joining us here. And you can log in through Facebook, Twitter as a guest. Now, he attended Vassar and graduated from sunny Stony Brook with a bachelor's in philosophy. Now, he has worked as a history teacher in the Brooklyn projects. Tough job. A tutor in the Philippines. And I love this, a truck smuggler in Central Africa. And, of course, a produced screenwriter in Germany, now from whence he returned to New York City to write what he considers his life work. And I love this title, The God Part of the Brain. Now, of course, he's our returning guest for a reason. You guys requested him back. You loved him the first time. Critical thinking, skepticism, whatever you want to call it. Matthew definitely explained it last time, and he's going to do it again for you, those of you folks just listening. Welcome back to the show, Matthew. Great to have you.
Great to be back again.
And to have you on this second hour, after we had our first guest, Reverend John Polk. Now, he made some amazing, he gave us some phenomenal information here regarding abductions, regarding Jesus, God being an alien impersonator. Everyone has their opinions, including yourself, of course, and that's what makes the world what it is, are all these opinions. But we highly respect yours because you take a scientific approach to this, a critical thinking approach. You dissect it. You have variables. A lot of us, we just kind of believe in Santa Claus because Mom and Dad said he was real. Tooth Fairy because there is a $5 bill under our pillow. All of these things, stereotype, it's kind of embedded in our brain, and that's what we're going to talk about is the God part. Now, tell the audience, what is the God part of the brain here? Love it. Love the title.
Mm-hmm. Well, the basic premise of my book is that I take the fact that every human culture from the beginning of our species, no matter how isolated, has believed in some form of a spiritual reality, suggesting that it's not an accident. The fact, for instance, that all cats meow or all beavers build dams, or with humans, the fact that all human cultures have music or language. None of these things are accidents. The mere universality suggests that there are parts of the brain that generate these behaviors. So I applied that principle to the fact that every human culture has believed in some form of a spiritual reality, suggesting that it's an instinct, that basically we are genetically hardwired to believe in some form of a transcendental reality. And I write about it as an evolutionary adaptation, a coping mechanism that evolved into our species to help us survive our unique awareness of death. So essentially it's a coping mechanism that just sort of makes life more livable given our awareness of our own inevitable, demise.
And having this part of the brain, I mean, you have, I believe if I'm correct, quote me if I'm wrong, 95% of population on this planet believe in a higher power. 5% do not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having that, I've got to ask, how rough is it to be you of that 5%?
I don't know. How rough is it to be you?
Bingo. I knew it.
First of all, as Jim Morrison put it, no one gets out of here alive. We're all on for a rough ride. Whether we believe in God, don't believe in God, have money in the bank. Certainly money in the bank helps, but yeah, I mean, well, first of all, let me just, you raise an interesting point, and often in regard to what you just said about the 95 to 5%, a lot of people will use that and say, yeah, what about those atheists, people like yourself? If you're suggesting that humans as a species are hardwired to believe in some form of a spiritual reality, then what's with that 5%? Which, so I'm just going to interject my own question in here before I even answer your question. And there's a chapter in my book called Why Are There Atheists? And basically I suggest that for every cognitive trait that any animal possesses, we fall into a bell curve. So, for instance, humans are a musical animal. Every culture has music. We respond to music. If you airdrop me in the jungles of Africa and I couldn't communicate with these people, if they clapped a tune, I could clap along with them. We would have a means to communicate because music is an instinctual part of our nature. And yet, with music, even though we are what we could say a musical animal, we fall into a bell curve. The average person has average musical potential, but on the tapering extremes of that bell curve, for instance, some of us are born tone deaf, whereas on the other side of the curve, some people are born towards savantism, or with a heightened capacity for musical ability of some sort. So just to make a little bit of sense of the statistic you just put out, I believe the same is true with spirituality and religiosity. Most of us are born with an average capacity to sort of have this feeling that there's something else out there, that there's got to be something more. Mm-hmm. And yet, on the tapering extremes, there are some people with a real heightened sense, like religiosity plays an important role in their life. They, are either devoted to whatever their religion is, they get involved in their religion, they pray constantly, their thoughts are constantly on God, and yet on the other side of the curve are the spiritually tone deaf, the people who inherently just don't care. It's not part of their mindset. So, with that in mind, myself being an atheist, that would mean either that A, I lack the genetic component that makes me a particularly religious person, and or as is often the case, some combination of nature and nurture, where my environment might have played a role too. So even someone like myself, had I been switched at birth by accident in the hospital and, scooped up by some, religious family missionaries, chances are I might, I still might have come out a skeptic, but I might be a missionary in Africa as well, So we're all part of we're a combination of both those elements. But I do believe that it does not play a big role in my conscious life to even contemplate these things. I was curious from a philosophical and sort of academic perspective, like, well, what's with this God thing? Why does every culture have a God, and why are people so possessed by these various beliefs that strike me often as really ludicrous?
Right.
And, like you said, sort of up there with the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. And yet grown-ups are suddenly believing in the Tooth Fairy if you just give it a different name.
No, you're right. You're right.
So anyway, just wanted to sort of an aside there, but in terms of how do I cope, first of all, everyone has their coping mechanisms. There's always drugs, sex, and rock and roll, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have my little escapes, and I find solace in intellectual, endeavors or artistic endeavors or just appreciating life for what it is. Certainly I'm probably as scared as the next guy of dying. I'm not particularly crazy about the idea of eternal nothingness.
And with that, Matthew, the whole concept of a higher power or God, if you will, I know that they have these biblical scrolls. Let's face it, and you folks can judge me as much as you want. Everybody has your opinions. The Bible contradicts itself several times over. Okay, I'll be the first to admit that. Like I said, I'm a recovering Catholic. Now, having said that, you have
you're a heathen.
But you have people. It's almost as if. And I'm not saying I don't believe in a higher power. Belief is belief. It's a personal thing within each other, whether you believe or not. It's a personal thing. Now, having that, perhaps something like that was created because of the final fear, the unknown, death. If someone comes up with this being, this heavenly light, or this hellish place, good and evil, let's face it, white hat, black hat, it's been going on for years. Thousands of years. So maybe society created something like that to give people some kind of hope that when they do cross, they go somewhere. Because when you and I know this is a horrible analogy, but you're walking along, you step on a cockroach, you don't worry if that cockroach is going to heaven or hell. The cockroach is now gone. Its existence is over. We don't know if it goes anywhere. We don't know if we go anywhere. There's only one way to find out. So maybe society put all this together, and of course it comes down to the money too. Let's face some facts here, folks. It comes down to the almighty dollar with this. You've got all of these different denominations, whatever. They're all making bank here. Your money. And we give it to them. So maybe they're creating something like this as, I'm not going to say it's a false hope because we don't know. But maybe that's why it came about, Matthew. What do you think?
Well, see, what you're suggesting is what's basically considered sort of the sociological explanation of religion, that humans needed explanations for things, so man made up answers, and that's kind of how religion started, and to incorporate power through the institution of religion, etc. So basically, it's a man-made thing. But what I'm suggesting is the mere fact that it's so universal would suggest that it's more than a man-made thing. And then to sort of support that notion that it's not man-made, that it's actually sort of nature fabricated, that we evolve with mechanisms in our brain that compel us to have these beliefs and these perceptions, just like we're wired for language. Now, no one's born speaking French or English or Russian. Society creates those languages, just like society creates religions, but we're all born with the template to, just like we are for language, for these belief systems. And to support that idea, there's tons of research that I could bore you with for the next hour that's been done, research that's been done on the brain that's showing that, for instance, if you have a religious experience, if you're in the midst of meditation or prayer, they can show exactly what's happening in the brain. That they're now doing studies to understand why, for instance, various cultures have used different plants to induce a religious experience. How is it possible that if I chew on a leaf, suddenly anyone from any culture is suddenly seeing their gods? It would mean that there must be some chemistry involved. So they're finding that, sort of the neurochemical origin, just like now we can go in an MRI and we can chart the neural basis of our language abilities. We can now chart the neural basis of not our spiritual beliefs, but where our spiritual concepts are coming from. There are people called temporal lobe. There are people who suffer a type of epilepsy that originates in their temporal lobe. They're called temporal lobe epileptics. And you can research this. There's tons of science on this. There's a guy, a doctor, PhD out in California, Dr. Ramachandran. He's the head of the neurophysiology department at UC San Diego, and a preeminent doctor around the world. And he has done research on these temporal lobe epileptics, who he was just doing studies on epilepsy, and he found that these people who were coming to him for the studies, it was like, this is weird. 9 out of 10 of them are super religious people talking about God and their religion constantly. So he started doing research, and he found that basically these people during their seizures have religious experiences. And they started poking around the temporal lobe and finding that it's very possible that that's where these religious concepts are basically coming from in the brain.
And hold that thought one moment, Matthew. When we come back, we're going to pick up on that topic as well, and we're going to get into Matthew's opinions on ghosts, aliens, things of that nature as well, and why
I was just going to
researchers
say,
get into all that.
I'm going to challenge Matthew a little bit when we come back.
Good. Ooh, Phil's going to challenge him. All right, you guys are going to love this. Get into chat. We definitely want your questions. Post them in there, all capital letters. You have any questions for our guest tonight, Matthew Alper, the God part of the brain? Definitely want to check this out. Stay tuned. Haunted Voices Radio right here, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. We'll be right back.
WGOG DB Clearwater. Haunted, a psychic story by author and radio host Ariel Grace. This is not your average book of hauntings. Haunted, a psychic story is written from a psychic perspective and contains true stories and some handy tips. Written in 3 parts, Haunted, a psychic story contains chilling adventures, advice from the archangels, and helpful tips used by Ariel Grace to clear haunted homes around the globe. Haunted, a psychic story is available on Amazon, or you can download straight to your Kindle. Haunted, a psychic story by Ariel Grace. Get your copy today. Let's face it, the world is a crazy place, and we all need some empowering advice. It's just too crazy for some of us to bear. Just too difficult to bring ourselves to a peak of happiness, right? Wrong.
Feel like your brain is scattered and you can't focus on one thing, ask for help from your angels. Your guardian angels are there waiting for you. Ask for help.
Join your host, Rita Doman, live Thursday nights for the Just Rita Real Talk Radio Show. Rita will assist you in your journey by offering advice, education, and fill your soul with laughter.
We need this knowledge so that we can work our
Just
future.
Rita Real Talk Radio Show. Live Thursday nights, 8, 7 Central at JustRitaRealTalk.com.
It is a lot of fun. Whether, things work perfectly or not, it always works in divine timing, divine planning. Everything works out. And
Need we say more?
A man who volunteers to be a human trigger object at the Haunted Sally House. Here's Todd Bates with Phil Roll on Haunted Voices Radio.
.23 minutes past the hour. Haunted Voices Radio Live, hauntedvoices.com. That's the place to be. Log into chat, Facebook, Twitter, as a guest. Get your derrieres in there. Post those questions. Unless you have every answer known to man, then please don't get into chat. And you probably wouldn't be listening either. Now, those of you just tuning in, you missed the first part. Don't sweat it. We've got you covered here. Now, you can listen to all the past programs. Once again, you can find everything right there at hauntedvoices.com. Just click on the past show section. And I do want to let you know, next week, we're going to be talking, this is a 2-hour special here. We're going to be talking with Kevin Barrett about false flag attacks. Very, very, very interesting and controversial show. You definitely want to tune into that. HauntedVoices.com, Haunted Voice Radio Live. Next week, next Tuesday, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Now, right now, we're talking with Matthew Alper. Now, we're going to take your questions, comments from chat, of course, so get them loaded up in there. Now, post them. Cindy will get them over here to us. Don't be shy, folks. No such thing as a dumb or wrong question. Any question is a smart question. Welcome back to the show, Matthew.
Thanks again.
Now, before we left here, Phil blatantly threw out there in the public ear to challenge thy. All right, Phil.
Challenge thee.
What? Yeah.
Whatever you got, let's hear it.
What do you think, Phil? Okay. Have at it.
No, just a quick question. Years ago, my wife and I got interested in the paranormal. Hauntings, spirits that remain here and all that. And we were skeptics. We got into it. We worked with a couple of paranormal groups. We've been to some of the more famous allegedly haunted places. We captured things on tape, voices when there was nobody there, things like that. Have you ever had a paranormal experience, or would you be willing to try something like that to see? Are you ever curious to see if maybe there is something?
Let me
if you really went after it?
And I think there's a movie sort of like this, but you could take the most infamously haunted house, the most notoriously evil home that you know of in America, and I will gladly camp there for the night, no problem, won't sweat it, just make sure I have a sleeping bag and a pillow, and so personally, again, as much as I believe, I don't believe in anything paranormal any more than I do anything spiritual. Mostly because in my own exploration, and in keeping with the explorations of sort of those channels of science that I put my faith in, who have done their own investigating, I have yet to find anyone who has come up with any type of information that made me raise my eyebrows and say, that person might be onto something. I know, for instance, even like Houdini, who, was an escape artist, and all of his stuff was basically just sort of like prestidigitation and sort of various trickery. He was curious himself in the occult because he wanted to escape death. That was going to be his ultimate cheat. And he got very into going to seances, and after a few years of it, of going in very optimistically, he came out as like one of the first like known skeptics, where he went out of the way to debunk these people as fraud. So I have not sat in on every seance. I can't speak for everyone who's gone into a house with a tape recorder and came out feeling or believing or actually having taped some necromancer or something. Nevertheless, I have yet to see anything that has convinced me that any human on Earth possesses anything from clairvoyance to telekinesis, the ability to read minds, to move things with one's mind, to connect with the dead. Now, again, going back to my God stuff, I don't even believe in spirits. So there'd be no one to connect with. You'd basically be connecting with someone's ashes.
Let me put this out there. You have Uri Geller. I'm sure you're familiar with him. Perhaps not.
Okay.
Uri, he's very telekinetic. He could bend spoons with his mind. Now, this is something that was videotaped. Now, do you think this is a smoke and mirror parlor trick, or do you think that is possible? I believe.
I remember hearing in like the 80s that someone had debunked Uri Geller, and if there was a person who really had those abilities, first of all, I mean, they would be they'd be on the cover of Time magazine. They'd be the subject of scientists coming from all around the world to study them on the most serious levels. There'd be whole divisions of brain science looking into, almost like out of a Marvel comic movie, like investigating, like a Doctor Strange, like Uri Geller would be the equivalent of Doctor Strange. And there'd be whole institutes revolved around finding those parts of the brain and the reason that it isn't is because he's a one-man show who would be on shows like Maury Povich and Johnny Carson, performing his tricks because he isn't the real deal. Now, I wish some person with, X-Man mutant powers entered the scene, because that would be really frickin' exciting. But I have yet to see it myself.
I could see him.
Yeah, the main thing I was talking about was spirits and that kind of thing. Because, people tend to think if you're into the paranormal and this and you do investigate places, they think, every little creak in a wall or, something, you think, oh, it's a ghost. And you don't. We go at it at most likely there's a logical explanation. But I have captured things that there was just no explanation for.
Yeah, so
and I wonder,
so
Todd and I have talked about this, the possibility that maybe there's a higher power and we're not meant to understand all this, what happens after death. So we might get little hints.
Mm-hmm. So I just to put it out there again, so again, there are like teams of scientists all around the world, universities made up of researchers who spend literally tens of billions of dollars a year, hundreds of billions, researching everything, trying to find the cure to cancer, anything that will basically move us forward in our knowledge of our own existences, of our own abilities, of our own biologies. And again, if there was such a thing, if all you had to do was go in with like a standard, microphone into a building and tape ghosts, I believe that there would be whole schools of research. So you'd be able to go to basically the Harvard School of Apparition Research.
And you're right.
You have to wonder why that doesn't exist.
You're right. You're right, Matthew. That is a pseudoscience.
Was a little skeptical, then Yale would pick it up. If it were real, it would be out there. People would be investigating. Big people with big money to get to the bottom of it.
And I fully agree with that. I do. I mean, it is considered a pseudoscience, and yes, it's not accepted Ivy League. I mean, let's face some facts. It's stereotypical. A lot of that has to do with religion and so forth. And a lot of these colleges, they won't take out. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But researchers, I mean, I've been out there, I've captured things, Matthew, but I can't explain. I have no idea. No one was there, and this came up, and this, is this in my mind? Absolutely. It could be, of course. But there has to be some kind of small percentage of that eliminates that doubt. There has to be, and I guess I'm hoping there is, and I'm trying not to fall into that society trap, but I'm hoping that there is something else out there. And perhaps a lot of people go out there and research. Maybe they want closure. Maybe they lost a loved one. They want some kind of closure. That's unknown. But there are some strange things out there. When you have billions of people with all of these different sightings, UFOs, these abductees and things, these many people, it has to, I mean, the numbers, it all comes down to logistics.
Realize, so, again, because of what I write about, I'm suggesting that we are born with an instinct that compels us to latch on to some form of a belief that gives us hope that there's more to the material world than just the material. And it takes the shape of, in some cultures, gods, in some cultures, more paranormal things, in some cultures it's more alien-type beliefs. But the mere numbers doesn't necessarily prove it, because, for instance, if we went by the numbers, let's take any version of religion. Let's take Islam. Right now in the world, there are probably hundreds of millions of people who could give you their personal testimony, accounts, things that they can explain that convince them that they felt the force of Muhammad, that they, felt the presence of Allah. And then there are going to be Christians saying the same thing about Mother Mary. They saw something, they saw a painting cry. Everyone's going to have some version of some vision they saw, something they felt, they heard, and it's going to be tied to their religious doctrine. So Jews will be having their visions, and we could go back in time to cultures that no longer exist, the ancient Greeks. They could have told you stories about how they were in the woods and they heard rustling, and they're convinced that it was Zeus or Pan.
Good point.
Or
Good point.
one of their own gods. And we're talking about billions of people, because the majority of people on planet Earth, like you said, 95% believe in something. With the same conviction that you're telling me about, spirits, they're going to be telling you about Allah, about Jesus, about the various Hindu gods, etc. So, again, the mere fact that it's so individual to the culture, because obviously all of these various gods can't coexist. I mean, I doubt it's anyone who's ever invented a god in their head suddenly is real, meaning that a lot of people must be reporting things that they felt and sensed, that they feel with the same conviction that they could say they see their hand in front of their own face, and obviously they must be wrong. So I just believe there's an instinct we have that is so powerful that it kind of distorts our mental outlooks a little and convinces us to see and believe things that we do because we need to so badly.
And those
yet
are...
I'm still a skeptic that none of it is real.
See, I wouldn't even consider you a skeptic, because you last time you were on the program, you corrected me. You definitely corrected me on that, and you're far from a skeptic. You're definitely a critical thinker, and there's a big difference. You definitely made that clear, and because I highly respect your opinion. This is a foundation we're trying to build. There's no absolutes here on either side. With this, it's what it's doing. I think it's helping better our research. It's not, you're not coming on here bashing us. Of course, we're not bashing you. You're helping research, because what you're doing.
Any investigation, whether it's a scientific study looking into the nature of electricity or looking for ghosts, you've got to be critical, and you've got to be skeptical of your own results. You've got to test them over and over again and make sure you get reliability. I think in order to get good results, whatever your hypothesis, you have to be critical and you have to challenge your own experiment.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're helping us as researchers become better ones. It's not that we're, going out there running around chasing, flashing everything. I mean, there's a method to the madness, and it's your opinions. Yeah, they're well respected here. But we do have a question from chat. Elvis is asking. She's asking you here, Matthew. So, are you missing the God part of the brain? Is that something that exists in a certain part of the population? She asked.
Well, kind of as when you asked me about the question with the 5% and how do I survive it, what I was saying again, that we fall into this bell curve, and some of us are born sort of spiritually tone deaf. So just like there are people born who do not have the capacity for music, like they're missing that part of the brain, but the way it developed within their maturation, they don't have a particular capacity for that. So a tone deaf person will never be able to like hum a tune, for instance. They just don't get it. That part of their brain doesn't light up. For 5% of the world's population, that religious part of the brain doesn't light up. You could sit and tell them about the wonders of God and how they should embrace their spiritual side, and they're just going to be pretty much shaking their head as if you're telling a tone deaf person, the wonders of music and how they need to go to more symphonies and how they're going to learn to appreciate it, and they never will. So,
well, and speaking
of that, to a certain extent, yes, people like me are probably have a diminished God part of the brain.
So, speaking of that, will humans continue to evolve? I mean, are we going to be a different creature in the distant future? I mean, presuming we all live that long.
Well, I actually already have webbed feet and gills, which is why I don't leave my house that often. But that's its own story. But no, personally, I don't believe that. I think we're done. I think we are done evolving, and I'll tell you why. And it has to do with a certain extent with the God part of the brain. So I believe that the reason that we evolved this part of our brain that compels us to have these beliefs is because humans developed the capacity for self-conscious awareness. We're the only animal that basically can recognize our own reflection, understand its own self, understand its own mortality, etc. And what that did was that capacity for self-reflection. Now, on the flip side, that the hazard of it was it made us aware of our mortalities, which made us a very sort of messed up animal. It made us, as Freud said, the neurotic animal, because we have existential awareness. However, the reason we evolved self-conscious awareness in the first place was because it gives us such a tremendous advantage. It gives us the power of self-modification. So, for instance, unlike any other animal, if, let's say, it gets cold out or another ice age comes, the last time an ice age came, animals had to sit back passively and wait, however many millions of years to develop a thicker coat of fur, etc. Humans, if it gets colder, we can say, "Ooh, I'm cold," and we have the digits and capacity for manipulation that within an hour we can sew ourselves a coat of fur. So we don't have to sit back like every other species on Earth and passively wait for our environments to actually force evolution upon us so that we'll, for instance, get a thicker coat of fur, etc. So because of self-conscious awareness and this capacity to modify our own selves, we've developed even, we can look at the sky and say, it'd be advantageous to fly. We build ourselves wings. It'd be advantageous to be able to swim like the fish. So we build, submarines, etc. We can go to other planets now. We can go to the moon. We can go wherever because this self-conscious awareness has made us so versatile. So the normal processes by which evolution take place, which is environmental pressures that force natural selection, will never happen to humans because we can survive any environment because we'll basically manipulate the environment before the environment manipulates us at this point. So there's no need for us to evolve.
Well said.
You've got like these sci-fi writers saying like, we're going to have a bigger brain, like we'll have this giant alien head in 500 years because we're going to have so much more thoughts in our head. The thoughts aren't going to go in our head. They're going to be stored in computers.
Well said. That, Phil, that screwed up and made sense.
But it's a little scary to think that we will become so dependent on machines.
Bingo. We already have.
That
Look
we
at
don't
us.
Make ourselves grow.
You think about it. Think about it. You have, now back in the day, let's face it, the world was a much smaller place. Even in our generation, especially yours, Phil, when you hung around Moses. I mean, back then, they had, there was nothing. No smartphones, no electronics, no ways to connect us.
How many tablets do we? So we just moved the little beads, and it worked.
So we had to come up with something, maybe to entertain us. I don't know, but the evolvement, and it's scary that you say that, Matthew, that we've stopped evolving because you think we're just going to keep going and going. We've come a long way since the caveman days, baby. Don't get me wrong, but look at us.
Well, we will socially evolve and we will technologically evolve, but as a species,
we're done.
No part of our genetics is going to change. We are going to always have a nose in the middle of our face and 2 ears and the same kidneys and lungs and heart. None of that stuff is going to evolve anymore.
It's done. The brain, it's a computer in itself. I mean, we only use a very small percentage of it. Perhaps one day, maybe we'll learn how to unlock the rest of it. But like you said, I think a machine is going to assist with that, unfortunately, because I think we're too lazy as a society. So we're trying to depend on beliefs. I think hope is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here bashing hope, faith, belief, anything like that. But I also think that we depend too much on it, and it takes the reality out of life. If I can sit here and conjure up a blue giraffe in New York, maybe one will appear. And it's not there now, but maybe if I keep intending it, a blue giraffe will appear. Now, reality says no. Hope says yes. So you kind of get caught up in that, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm big on law of attraction as well. You know, you kind of get back what you put out there. But there's, again, you know, you're going into that whole belief system, the faith, and these are emotions, and they're real vague emotions to have sometimes, because you put these out there and you depend on them so much, and then when it does come back, it's something you didn't intend for, you don't want, then you're crushed. So it's one reaction, you get another. So in the brain, it's just it's a messed up organ. It really is. It's complex. We can't figure it out. But I love this conversation, and I know you folks do as well. Post your final questions right there in chat, hauntedvoices.com. Put them in all capital letters. Any final questions for our guest, Matthew Alper, tonight? I mean, this is an amazing conversation. This makes you think. You've got to, and I want to thank all of you for being so respectful with this, because you have to. There's two sides to every story. You've got to listen to both of them, form your own foundations here. There's no right or wrong, just a way. More Haunted Voices Radio when we come back. Stay tuned.
WGOG DB Clearwater. Let's face it, the world is a crazy place, and we all need some empowering advice. It's just too crazy for some of us to bear. Just too difficult to bring ourselves to a peak of happiness, right? Wrong.
Feel like your brain is scattered and you can't focus on one thing? Ask for help from your angels. Your guardian angels are there waiting for you. Ask for help.
Join your host, Rita Doman, live Thursday nights for the Just Rita Real Talk Radio Show. Rita will assist you in your journey by offering advice, education, and fill your soul with laughter.
We need this knowledge so that we can work our
Just
future.
Rita Real Talk Radio Show. Live Thursday nights, 8, 7 Central at JustRitaRealTalk.com.
It is a lot of fun. Whether, things work perfectly or not, it always works in divine timing, divine planning. Everything works out. And
Need we say more?
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cool time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
When a child is abducted, every second counts. That's why this station uses the Internet Radio Amber Alert System, helping to keep your children safe. A free service of the Internet broadcasting community and this station.
"47 minutes past the hour. Haunted Voices Radio. That's what you're listening to here, folks. Those who are just tuning in, if you're on the tune-in, you can check us out there. Search WGOG Digital Broadcasting on your mobile device. Of course, you can listen to us live there. Now, we're discussing the God part of the brain with our guest tonight, Matthew Alper. Loving it. Absolutely amazing conversation here. Post your final questions there in chat. Be sure and put them in all capital letters. Now, what we have here is a conversation that a lot of us don't like having. Just understand, there's no right or wrong answer here, folks. And be sure to listen next week. We're going to be having a 2-hour special, and we're going to be talking about some very controversial topics. Find all the information you need on the upcoming shows. We've got the next 2 weeks up there for you at hauntedvoices.com. All the information you're going to need. The next 2 weeks are 2-hour specials. You're going to love those. Now, to get into chat, go to hauntedvoices.com. Log in there, Facebook, Twitter as a guest. Post your questions in all capital letters. Cindy's going to get those here to us. Now, welcome back here, Matt. And there's a lot of things we discussed here tonight. This hour just flies by. We love having you on here. And there's just a few other questions we have. So some of these coming in, you have the scientific view, critical thinking, highly respected in there. And there's a lot of scientists out there. They don't have a faith system either. It's strictly science-based. That's what makes them good scientists, is because they're so solid in their field that they do not believe in believing, which is good because there's nothing to prove belief exists. You can't hold it. You can't touch it. You cannot, so that's what I love about it. But scientists, now the matter and energy can neither be created or destroyed. Now, do you feel this constitutes a valid argument for the possibility that we, our spirits or souls, might live on forever?
Well, it's actually an argument that I've heard many times, often cited by sort of people who follow kind of a more like new agey kind of thinking process. I know it's sort of one of the concepts that gets banted around. There's a lot of sort of new age sort of physics books written on sort of quantum physics, and sort of where they try to almost use sort of the random element in quantum physics to sort of make an argument for possible beliefs, etc. Lost my train.
No, and it's tough. You have someone like Einstein that says, "Look, you've got energy in this."
So the matter energy thing. So basically, matter. That's the second law of thermodynamics. It's called the law of entropy. Basically, matter can neither be created or destroyed. But there's a fixed amount of matter/energy in the universe. No matter could just sort of disappear into nothingness, and no new matter can just sort of appear from nothingness. And what people make, what I believe is a mistake, is they believe they do this sort of logic, which has a bit of a leap of faith involved, this sort of syllogistic logic, which is, I am made of matter/energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed, ergo, I can't be created or destroyed. So basically, I will in some way live forever. Now, that's absolutely true. The energy that we're made of will exist forevermore, and actually has existed from the beginning of time. Like every one of us is made up of matter and energy that has existed for all eternity into the past, and will exist for all eternity into the future. The thing is, when we say, like, I will live forever, usually people are making reference to, like, their consciousness, like them, their personality. And consciousness is a facet of the brain. So the problem is even though, like, so for instance, let's say even right now, like, I get my nails clipped, or I get a haircut. Now, that was once part of me. That hair is now going to dissolve into the earth. It's not like it's going to disappear into a black hole, not to exist at all again. It will exist forevermore. The energy in that hair will exist. The energy in the toenails we clip will exist for all eternity. They will evaporate. They will join the soil process and get decomposed and become other things, and in a billion years be floating in space somewhere when there isn't even an Earth anymore.
And that reminds me of the cliche, the Catholic cliche, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Same kind of principle. What is now this.
Right. So the thing is, though, so consciousness is the brain. And the problem is, though, even though my physical self will exist in some form forevermore, my consciousness will cease to exist the minute my brain ceases to exist. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to die to lose myself. I could get Alzheimer's. I could suffer traumatic brain injury, get banged in the head, and be a vegetable for the rest of my life, in which case I no longer exist. Now, my matter and energy are the same, but the quality of my conscious experience has been compromised. So the thing is, when people say we can't be created or destroyed, they're kind of trying to make this leap that means their conscious experience, like so that when their body dies, they're kind of believing, they're allowing that information to lead them to believe that somehow their awareness will keep going. Like they'll still have the same thoughts. It'll be disembodied. And the thing is, the thoughts come from the brain. And when the brain stops, so will consciousness. So, yes, our
That's a valid
physical
point.
cells will exist for more, but our conscious cells will cease to exist the minute our brains stop working.
Go ahead, Phil.
See, there's the differences in beliefs. Now, a lot of people, the consciousness, that's the spirit that lives on.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing, is you have the physical body. Okay, we have proof. That's matter. It's solid. We can touch it, feel it, taste it, smell it, and so forth. The inner self, the soul, we cannot see it. Now, of course, science has disproved that, they actually did a test. I can't remember how many years ago this was. It's quite a while ago, where the people died. They weighed them before death and then after, and of course there was a weight loss. And they were saying that was the actual soul leaving the body. Now,
believe me, scientists don't speak in a language of souls. So scientists' souls are sort of non-entities. They're religious beliefs. Consciousness, to any scientist, consciousness is strictly the brain. So, for instance, you might believe that, again, your soul, which is, again, your personality, who you think of yourself as being, who when people describe you as a person, the qualities they describe, oh, he's this, he's funny, he's that is you. But the scientists, all of that is your neurophysiology. And they've seen so many disorders, so many diseases of the brain where people's core personalities changed, where they lost their humor, they lost their memories, they lost their sense of self, they suffered amnesia, didn't even know who they were anymore, where they suffered from something called like Pick's disease, which is a disease that deteriorates the prefrontal cortex, and suddenly all of your tastes and preferences dissolve. The things like the foods you loved, you no longer care about. The music you loved, you could suddenly have a whole new taste. You could be wearing new clothes because your core personality is tied to your neurophysiology. Okay. And when your brain goes, again, so does your alleged soul. And there's so much scientific research out there to show that that one's personality is directly connected and correlates to the organ, the brain. People with traumatic brain injury, who suddenly their personalities, they go from like a gentle soul to someone who's aggressive and suffers depression and all of the various horrors that come with traumatic brain injury.
Okay, I've got one
banged in the head.
I've got one quick question. I mean, we've got just literally 2 minutes here. One quick question. Okay. In your opinion, in your opinion, which I value very, very, very much, what animates us? What animates us? Now, we're beings, okay? What makes our eyes? What brings our eyes alive? What makes our lips quiver whenever there's some kind of emotion? What animates us? What is our puppeteer? What makes us do what we do, other than the brain?
The brain is our puppeteer.
Okay.
And we have this brain that gives us all of these complex capacities for behavior because somehow each one of them provides us with some evolutionary advantage that makes us a more survivable organism. And if you put them all together and you look at the species man as a whole, you can see why we have these things, because look how powerful we are. I mean, we've dominated. We've only been in the picture. I mean, life is about 3.2 billion years old. Humans have only been around for about 100,000 years. And within in a flash, we have pretty much taken over the world. We have total domination, and unfortunately now the power to destroy the world, which we probably will.
More than likely.
So it's because of all of these subtle energies that you're describing, they all just make us a more powerful animal, and that's the purpose. And what animates us is just biology, the same thing that animates an earthworm.
Great answer. No, that is a great answer.
No spirits or anything like that. So you're not going to believe the TV show I watched where these paranormal guys actually have a box that can trap a spirit.
Well, Well, you know what? I'd like them to come to my house and try to get mine in there. Because I think it's just giving me headache.
Oh, I love the paranormal TV shows. Boy, they're the best comedies in the world.
Oh, try and get mine in there. Oh, my goodness. Oh, Matthew, as always, it was amazing speaking with you. Look, you've got 60 seconds here. The mic's yours. Get out your information, where people can get your book, your website, how they can contact you.
Sure. Well, the book is called The God Part of the Brain. The website is in keeping with the title, www.godpart.com. They'll learn a lot of information that we didn't get to go over in this conversation that's in the book. So, the chapters and the premise, where they can order it. Anyone can go on to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It'll also, if they go to godpart.com, it'll also send them links to another book of mine, which is called Icarus of Brooklyn, A Spiritual Quest Gone Wrong, which when people ask me why did I write the book, The God Part of the Brain, I sort of wrote a prequel, which is a memoir of sort of how I got there. So it's about my lessons. My name's Matthew Alper, A-L-P-E-R. They can Google that. Like I said, they can go to Amazon. They can go to godpart.com. And thanks again for a great interview and a great show. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, and of course we're going to be in touch. You know that. I mean, you're a pleasure to have on here. You're a wealth of information. Thank you very much, Matthew, for taking time to come on.
Yes.
Thank you for having me on. Any time. You just let me know when.
Thank you very much. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Matthew Alper, folks, right there. God Part of the Brain. Now, Phil, that's just, I don't know. I like that. I like it. It's controversial.
We had a contrasting show tonight.
Yeah, that's what I loved about it, is the audience, I learned a ton. I know you did, and I know the audience did. That's why we do these. The first hour, we're talking about going to outer space, hybrid children, Jesus is an alien. The second hour, we're discussing how people do not believe in believing. Straight science, the God part, it's wired into the DNA. Now, what you need to do is form your own opinion from those 2 hours. Listen to it again. Find it on iTunes, subscribe to it, it's free of charge. Download that, listen to this entire show again, process it, base your own opinion. That's what makes you a critical thinker. And that's what takes you out of that realm of just running around flashing a camera everywhere with your research. This will help your research, folks. Absolutely.
You have to be open-minded to everything.
And that's, the beauty of it is what it is. There's no right or wrong way, just a way. Now, next week, 2-hour special, we're going to be talking about some very controversial topics. I'm not even going to sit here and tell you about it. What I want you to do is go to the website, hauntedvoices.com. Look right there on the main page. We have all of the guest information for the next few weeks up there. Read it. Put that in your calendar. We're here every Tuesday night, live, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Be sure to listen to us on iHeartRadio app as well, free of charge. We're on the After Hour AM.